ethics advisor will recommend training for whom?
So say an elected official is the one complained about, and if the board decides, yes, indeed, that's a valid complaint, basically the board would then say what kind of training or education or a fine or a censure. It would basically be the gamut of what the board
I
could say.
understand that's implied, but I don't get it from that sentence.
Oh, okay, I got you. Very good, thank you.
So is there a way that you will reword that sentence to better speak to, or do you have any suggestions or recommendations?
Training for the complainant or the official.
Yeah, the official, yeah,
Okay.
the official involved.
As
Yeah.
a practical matter, as the ethics officer, how will they get information on potential training, what's appropriate?
Thank you for that. Yesterday morning at 8 a.m., we had a meeting with several city staff to just kind of say, okay, we know you guys didn't write this policy, but it's been here for a year. What conversation has been had about what training? Does anybody know what training is available? Was there any conversation back when this was passed as a policy? What have you? And everyone kind of basically said, no, we never really hear much about ethics training being available for city officials. So we have added it to our mission to research that a little bit. We'll look at things like League of Kansas Municipalities. And if occasionally they offer training, or if we can encourage them to do so at their annual conference or something, we'll look for some online training. We'll check things like National League of Cities. We'll check Kansas Governmental Ethics Commission to see if they do anything. And as you'll see here shortly, one thing that I think it's in here is that the city law department said they would make a video, because right now on the Ethics Advisory Board's webpage, there's a video that's the Kamakura training. So all the new board members get pointed to that video. Watch this so you understand what an open meeting is, that kind of thing. Jennifer's going to make a new video that's just about the code of ethics that'll be out there and available on the website for the base level training of it. If you get appointed to a board, or you're thinking about running for office, or you've won your seat on the city council, watch this video to get the basics. Now, once an official, is told by the EAB, you did something wrong, then it'd be the board's determination at that time, with input from the ethics officer and the legal counsel as to what training is needed. We hear training, and people of our age, we think that means like go to a class. So a lot of people have said, well, what classes are available? There aren't very many, but a lot of times something like this is much more like, let's have a phone call or a face-to-face and make sure the official understands and has an opportunity to ask their questions. And I think a lot of times just the violation in and of itself will probably be training enough. Now they know what they shouldn't do, right? Especially if it was a matter of confusion. John, do you have anything to add to that? Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
that makes sense. No, I don't have anything to add to it.
I think some of it is learning as we go, to be honest. I don't think we should think that word training means that you're going to go off to some class and learn 10 different things. Training might just be, this is one thing you violated and don't do it anymore.
So much training is online these days. Large entities, particularly governmental entities. So maybe there's also packets or sessions, because that's a lot of sexual harassment, things like that.
And another learn as we go, another learn as we go is this idea that you had at the meeting, Corinthian, which was when we send out the policy and to the new electeds, new board members, which is all going to be happening with a bunch of board members here in the March, April, because that's when the boards turn over. There'll be, I don't know, probably 100 new people come on board.
Can you go on?
No,
Never.
you stay home. You're just getting started, buddy.
You die.
Right now, the onboarding process, they give them a copy of the code of ethics. But then what we're going to add to it is Jennifer's video explaining it, talking about it. They can watch in a short period of time. But then also would be a cover letter from the ethics officer saying some of the FAQs of, here's what we think you want to know that maybe not, it's kind of a cover. of, here's what this ethics policy means, and here, you call the ethics officer if you have questions, but read through it and watch the video, and by then, I think too, we'll have a couple cases under our belt, and I think every time we have a case, we'll be able to add to a list of frequently asked questions of the learnings from the past cases, if somebody did something wrong, or even if they didn't, it could still be an FAQ that says, some people think this means this, but it doesn't, and that might help people, decide whether they're gonna file a complaint too.
Okay. If no further discussion, we will move on to procedure 11. That's still on the same page 6. The policy again is underscored above. The questions that we were trying to answer were pertaining to public censure, and responsibilities of the ethics officer. For the procedure we have, the ethics officer shall serve as a spokesperson for the EAB and shall issue a public censure and/or any fines in writing, emailing it first to the official, confirming receipt, then shortly thereafter posting it to the city's website, and then sending the media advice.
Isn't this the same thing, or is this something different from? When the report is sent out and an immediate advisory is given.
It's rather the same procedure, but it's just, as we go through this policy, we wanted every piece of the policy addressed clearly. And this one, the former staff had that question of, how do we release it? Do we have if it's a censure and it's a serious violation, do we call a press conference or something? And
So
what we're suggesting is you do the same thing.
the
Just
tone of
post it.
It is to the censure. Well, and my question is, wouldn't that censure be included in the report? This just seems to be dealt, you're saying the same thing twice, the way we do it.
It also
We're
says,
gonna do it
and
twice.
any fines.
Right, so.
So this also deals with the consequences after they, the summary.
It's like a verdict and the sentence. The first report is the determination, the verdict of what happened. This person violated this one. And then the ethics board is going to decide what happened, the sentence. And then when
So
they,
that doesn't happen at the same time as the question mark.
that's not the
Why
one.
would we have a separate meeting for that?
I mean, to me, that's unclear. I think that's to be determined. It could happen at the same time and it could happen later. I think we just felt since they wrote a separate sentence about it in the policy, we would say, no, we're not going to call a press. In other words, if it's more serious, do we call a press conference or something rather than just put it on the website and send out the media? And we're saying no. The words will speak for themselves. You don't need to call attention to it by having a press conference or something. That's what we're getting at.
And I understand that. What I don't understand is why we're doing what would seem to be happen once, why we're doing it twice.
Yeah, good chance of it all happen at the same time. If the board's able to do all that at the same time, make the decision and figure out the public censure. It could be that you have a grueling night meeting and you're tired and you're like, okay, we've got as much as we're gonna get done. Let's all think about what level of fine or what level of censure. If it's serious, you might want to take another bit of time to decide that.
So then you would issue a report. We decide there was a violation and we're having a sentencing hearing in 2 weeks.
Just separate.
Background, what do they call
PSI, pre-sentence investigation.
Yeah.
I don't think we're assuming either, but I think either is a possibility according to what the board feels like it's time to do.
I move with this line.
Number 12.
All right. If you all turn to page 7, procedure number 12, the questions that we were trying to answer pertain to funds or payments. What we have written is fines are to be paid by the official, not by the city. It It is the official's decision how/where they obtain the money, but in no circumstances shall payment be made from a city budget or account. Earned income from their city paycheck is an acceptable form of payment.
This doesn't deal with the last sentence of the policy.
So
That they may not be paid by another party.
Yeah, this doesn't say that.
We thought that was self-explanatory and did not need a procedure.
I think politicians probably
What do you
need it
think?
explained.
Yeah, but it's confusing. It says it is the official's decision how or where they obtain the money.
So if I get my brother to pay it.
That
I mean,
is
I don't know what the
confusing, isn't it?
policies meant to avoid. Can I get my dad or uncle to pay on my behalf, give me a check, and I write a check from my account? What is this, what is the policy? Or is this, I mean, is this really meant to me, this is what they mean is, don't get your money from campaign funds, but it's what I think they
Or-
probably mean.
Don't get paid, violate ethics to get something done for someone, like a builder, somebody that you're trying to pass an ordinance for, and then they just pay it for you. I mean, that's a cheat. way to
Right.
Get an ordinance passed.
Yeah, and they give you the money, you write.
Right.
I mean, this doesn't fix that, I don't know if we can, but if that's what they mean to avoid this, the procedure fixes everything up to that last sentence. And I don't know how far we want to go, or can go.
And you're right, and we chose in our procedure draft to be minimal. It could be when the council, maybe they'll let us know that, well, here's what we meant by that, cannot be paid by another party. We meant campaign fund. Well, really? Because it doesn't say that. And so we just thought the strict interpretation of the sentence is that you have to pay the money directly to the city. Where you get it from is up to you. But if you, violate a campaign
Well, that's a
finance
big
rules,
old-
that's like a whole nother
That's-
law.
That's a big old hole to walk through, but that's, yeah.
I agree.
How about if it's modified where it says it is the official's decision how/where they obtain the money from their personal finances?
That's helpful, I think.
And then
That
that
is
way, it's
helpful.
not gonna go to third parties, not gonna go to campaigns.
That covers it.
Mhm. I think that is helpful, it's more clear, and it better interprets the policy.
Exactly, what it is. And then if you wanted to do a relative offender, and then I think, in no event shall the money or for the avoidance of doubt shall the money be obtained from a third party, if that's what they mean. I hadn't even thought of that, the builders.
I suppose if the builder donates a gift to his friend, and then it becomes part of his personal finances.
That's the thing, somebody else pays it for you, then you gotta report it, it's over the right amount.
if we're all okay with that modification, thank you for that suggestion. I'll move on to 13. Where we're dealing with the policy of failure to paying fines, who's responsible for watching that and ensuring that's paid. Procedure we have written, officials shall make payment to the city of Wichita in care of the assigned staff. Staff shall record receipts, notify the EO and EAB of payments received, and make appropriate deposits. Staff also shall keep track of the 60 days and notify the EO and EAB if fines are not paid. Once notified, the ethics officer shall draft a public censure and inform the EAB.
Where are the deposits being made? What account?
And city accounts, whatever, I don't know how they do that, but basically we would ask that it be kept in a separate accounting, so where that we can tell, because remember the policy says the monies collected are supposed to be used for ethics training and stuff. So that's the idea, that they would segregate those funds and keep track of them so that we would know, not just put it in the general fund or something.
It would be helpful, I think, if the idea was stated.
Are you suggesting, Vicky, like the city clerk or the city treasurer?
Do you, And make appropriate deposits in the account, whatever the name of
Yeah.
the account is.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Good idea. Thank you.
Any other suggestions for modification for 13? Okay. Hearing none, I'll move on to 14, which is on the bottom of that page 7. The policy we're discussing is listed above. The procedure we have written, regardless of cost for specific educational opportunities, any fine revenue received shall be deposited in a unique location in the city's accounting system where it will accumulate to be used for future ethics education.
I think we can take out the first part of that sentence through the comma.
Okay, so the sentence should start at 80 fine revenue. Are there any other suggested modifications?
And I would say, Kelly, I think that's a great idea. It makes it wordy with it, and I think I got caught up trying to answer the question in red instead of being a, direct offshoot of the policy itself.
We're now on page 8 of this source document. We'll move on to procedure 15. We were trying to answer questions around who tracks this and what if they refuse. So the procedure we have written, staff shall communicate with the appointed members of the city boards and commissions, monitor progress in getting required training, and report progress to the ethics officer and ethics advisory. If sufficient progress in getting required training is not made, the ethics officer may recommend and the ethics advisory board may consider making additional recommendations, including recommending the city council consider removal from office.
This part only pertains to people that the city council appoint to boards and commissions like the planning commission. This part does not pertain to the city council members, right? So do we use the word recommend enough times, like 3 times in one sentence, to make it clear that this board cannot make an appointed member of the animal control advisory board, for example? You can't make them step down. You can't remove them from office. You can say, city council, we recommend that you consider removing them from office. Seems to be clear as clear can be.
All right, moving on to 16. We were trying to answer questions about a serious violation, and the procedure that we have is because serious violation is not defined in the policy, the EAB will determine its definition on a case-by-case basis. Any suggestions for modification, or anything to add to further clarify?
I'd be curious what other ethics advisory boards, if they have definitions of serious violations in their policies.
Yeah, it's a great question. And if we find anything, we'll let you know. Our impression is with the city council having gone through this policy several meetings early on, they either, as far as I know, they didn't have very many others to go off of, but They obviously didn't have a definition. We took the easy way out and said, we'll just have to figure that out as we go. If it was easy to define, it probably would have been defined. But if we'll watch out for that as we research and see other things, and if we come up with something, then we'll bring it to you.
I'd just like, somebody maybe to check on it rather than assume.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're now on page 9. And under this section, it's around ethics education. And the procedure that we have listed in response to what's spelled out in the policy. The assistant city clerk manages the onboarding process for new members of the city council and all boards and commissions, and provides each with a copy of the code of ethics with a letter from the ethics officer as a part of a packet of information relevant to them. Once, going twice. Moving on to 18. And this is around ethics training for, in the policy, this is around ethics training for city officials. The procedure that we have written is, as a part of the onboarding process, the ethics officer shall provide a letter to the assistant city clerk to include with the code of ethics. The letter shall inform new elected and appointed officials of some frequently asked questions about the code of ethics and to address questions to the ethics officer. If the ethics officer position is vacant, the letter will specify someone else for elected and appointed officials to contact with their questions. So you don't have any suggestions they would like to make to 18?
I don't know if you want to add anything to it, but we just said that this is going to be a developing list of facts. Is there a way to say that without adding too much more to that paragraph?
That the frequently asked questions would continue to get updated, is that what you mean? Okay. Yes,
So that somebody wouldn't complain that that information wasn't available to them while we didn't have it at that time.
exactly. I like it. I'll add that in.
All right, we're now on page from the last.
Ed, are you tired?
Well,
I have here you saving up for something.
Somebody taught me 40 years ago, you can talk too much.
I appreciate your insight.
Okay, the policy we're trying to address is at the top of the page. We're trying to define periodic and what that looks like. The procedure we have is currently the city law department is in the process of creating a brief video about the code of ethics to post on the Ethics Advisory Board webpage. The video will provide training for new, appointed, and elected officials in a manner similar to a video about the Kansas Open Records Act and Kansas Open Meetings Act, which is currently provided on this webpage. Any comments or feedback there?
I would just take out the first currently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Too much of a good thing.
Okay, moving on to procedure 20. It states the ethics officer shall respond to questions from elected and appointed officials as well as the general public.
Do we want to affirm, well, let me ask, does this policy mean to, is this meant to say that only the ethics officer shall respond?
I tell you what,
Because if that's what we mean, then what you want is prohibitive language that said the rest of us should be talking to
Ah.
city council and whoever.
Now, this
Since
is.
you gave us that speech the first time, man.
I'm glad you someone listen, you remembered what I said.
Now, this is my questions to the board. So if you turn to page 6, procedure 11, it states in our procedure, because that's not listed in the policy, the ethics officer shall serve as the spokesperson for the EAB. Does that kind of name, in official language that, so they're the main point of contact, or do we need to put that kind of language?
Well, to me, that's different from the rest of us need to be quiet.
Okay.
Saying that they're the spokesperson, I mean, to me, that's a different role than we should be answering questions around town and, we should have a central point of. Don't know, because awesome, because I promise you that at some point, people will start. We're a small enough community, that you will get cornered.
People talk to who they know. If someone knows Vicky, they're gonna ask Vicky.
Could it be solved by putting the ethics officer and not the members of the EAB?
That's a great way to do it. And this might be a really good time to flow over to do the policy, because you can see these last couple here, or 20 and 21, both have yellow things, right, with strikeouts. So these are new suggestions for policy amendments that we did not talk about last week. So if you don't mind, we can go to the policy document and I could just walk through. I took off the yellow highlights from last week because we already reviewed those. That's why there's no yellow on page 1, because last week you did not make any changes to page 1. But when you flip over to page 3, the change that we discussed on the definition of relatives is highlighted in yellow, because that was a change we just came up with on the fly in last week's meeting. And that was in response to a member of the public who had emailed me that afternoon suggesting that our definition of relatives did not really include in their mind a step brother or a half sister. And we came up with the word, let's just use siblings, and then that includes all the all genders, all steps and halves and all that. And then if you flip over to page 5, you see more yellow. And in yellow on page 5 is the thing that had us tearing our hair out last week. We labored over, but we came up with some good words, and that's number 4. Substantially involved, paid or unpaid, with the current or the most recent campaign for city council or mayor. So that was the new language we came up with, is in yellow. And unless anyone has regrets, that's feeling like it's better than what we had before. And the second yellow is something you might want to consider. That was, we briefly described the citizen input from last Thursday afternoon, additional citizen input, which was, are we doing a background check? Is it a civil or financial background check, or is it just criminal? And it's not on this list for members of the EAB, but you all said, indeed, the city did a background check on you because they sent you the forms and asked you to comply with that. So I just earlier today was checking in with the city staff in terms of what kind of background check do you do on boards and commissions such. And I don't know that I have it definitive yet, but I have it narrowed down and that it Well, I don't have it definitive. I know it's a criminal background check. And I don't know how much financial they go into, but it's certainly possible. And they have an outside service that does this on several things in the city. So it's possible. I think the question is, I wrote it and put the yellow highlight, but I need your input as to, do you think it needs to be there? Or the fact that the city's doing a background check now, is that enough, or should we put it on this list? Or do you care? You may not have a recommendation, and that's okay. The city council needs to decide it.
I personally think criminal is sufficient. I don't care if somebody filed a medical bankruptcy 20 years ago or what their credit score is, necessarily. They have financial hardships in their own life. Maybe they have a sick child or something like that. I don't think that should bar someone from serving on this committee. They were evicted at some point. Like, I just don't think that it's relevant. Criminal definitely.
I agree, Jeff.
Thank you.
You probably haven't given this a lot of thought, but if you do think of something later, or either agree with that or agree with the language as is, you might let me know. Since we're getting this finalized to go to the council tomorrow. My PowerPoint's due tomorrow for Tuesday's,
Oh my gosh.
for Tuesday's workshop meeting, so think on it and let me know, but what I could do is put criminal in the list, and then I could add a comment over to the side that says someone suggested criminal and civil, and or, you know, leaves it up to the city council, but something like what Kelly just said. I mean, a civil would reveal evictions and financial bankruptcies, financial, I guess, crimes, but mostly, no, it wouldn't be crimes, because that, it would be financial
That's correct.
situation, yeah.
I agree with you.
Okay, I'll take out the and civil. Okay, so moving on to page, whoo, baby, look at all the yellow on page 6. So at the top, we changed that last week's meeting. This is the qualifications for the ethics officer, and we moved there the thing we talked about 2 meetings ago, which is that the ethics officer shall not necessarily have to live in the city limits, but preferably live in the Wichita region. And then the other thing we changed last week, the second yellow, was instead of saying notarized in parentheses, when the complainant signs their complaint under oath, it would now say and notarized. So in most people's minds, that's a technical change, but we understand it was suggested because of some legal issues, and this would be a better way of writing this policy. Then the third one is probably grammatical as well, adding comma, the ethics officer who may consult with, so not really substantive there. The fourth one is a whole new sentence. If the ethics officer determines the complaint is sufficient per the policy, the ethics officer shall begin the investigation, just being very clear about who's doing the investigatory work.
If you're trying to make it shorter, I don't think you need to say per the policy, but
Yeah, okay.
even there is or is sufficient, and the policy is the guide. Then
Mhm.
I don't know.
Leaving
any
the
more-
words makes it very clear that it's not a judgment call. And later in the policy, we'll get to the part where they had used the word opinion, like the outside counsel or the ethics officer is making opinions on things. And I think we don't want people thinking that they're making a judgment call about whether something's sufficient. It's either per the policy or not.
I might even have suggested that language,
Okay.
but I'm not married to it, but my thought process probably was,
I was just trying to, I'm usually the most wordy person in the room, so I was trying to emphasize.
my problem was that sufficient isn't the description of what's looked for or required in the complaint. So I said per the policy, or at least thought in my head, so that at least there's something there
I-
saying, go back and look at what
It's
you
not
have
a
to have.
brief, we're fine.
Okay, so then last paragraph on page 6 then is with the addition of business days on when the person being complained about is given 7 days to respond. We would suggest they be given 7 business days, which literally gives them probably 2 more days, but if there's a holiday in there, it could be 3 more days. But it's trying to be a little more reasonable about how much time people would need to file a good response. The new sentence, if requested within the 7 business days, the ethics officer may extend to 14 business days if satisfied that good cause was shown. So those are what you talked about in last Thursday's meeting, and first time you're seeing them written into the edits of the policy. Now, we're getting to the part where we didn't talk about this yet at last week's meeting. So on page 8, there's one yellow, and that is the ethics officer deleting out the words from the policy and outside legal counsel will serve, oh, and I didn't make opinions and decisions yellow, but it should be yellow. Those are 2 changes that I made as I was going through this, trying to make all your changes. And as we were updating the procedures, and we realized that I think the council should be recommended to not make their outside legal counsel be available to the general public to answer questions, because that'll cost them a fortune. And the ethics officer should be sufficient for that, but also as serving as a resource and answering questions made by the mayor and council should not be the outside legal counsel, because he's not their attorney. He's your attorney. And that's what I have started making in my PowerPoint for the workshop for them to understand. This revised language will keep costs down for outside legal counsel, and will make sure that if the council members have questions, they're either talking to their attorney, which is the city attorney, or their personal attorney, depending on the nature of their question. In the second sentence, it says opinions made by the ethics officer or outside counsel could be appealed to the whole board. And I think we're still capturing the essence of what the council thought when they wrote this, which was probably that if a person makes a decision that somebody wants an avenue to appeal, they would certainly appeal it to the board, but those are not opinions. The ethics officer is only enabled, empowered, authorized to make certain decisions. It's not very many. It's mostly administrative work, and the outside counsel is the same way. It's that decision up front, reviewing the complaint to decide, is it going to get an investigation or does it not meet all the requirements of the policy? And then the ethics officer now has a decision to make whether to allow an additional 7 days to the person being complained about to give their response. So that's the only decisions I could really find in the document. Everything else is advisory and recommendations. It's the board that makes the decision. So. And that is why, going back to the procedure document, those 2 items reflect those 2 changes, but we just didn't talk about them last week.
And the procedures document, why was paragraph 3 added to 2? It seems like a separate thought.
What page are you on there, Vicki?
8,
Page 8?
whistleblower protection.
Oh. Okay, in the policy. Why was, what now? What was the question?
Where number 3 is marked out and that paragraph is added to number 2, it still seems like it should be it should be number 3 separate.
You know, and it will be, this is
Okay.
my fight with the word software.
Okay, just
We
I
need-
have this fight all the time.
Yeah, when you
Just
hit the,
checking.
yeah,
Me too.
Oh, it drives me crazy.
I do that and then I fight the changes and it shows up.
It fixes itself.
I don't know why it did that.
It's-
Well,
The
and
word
you
is
know what?
annoying.
If you accept our
I'll
changes,
accept them.
if you accept our changes, it'll fix itself.
Yeah, I'll accept those changes because I didn't intend to change anything there. I'm not sure why. Those numbers are even different. I'll accept them though. That'll fix it. Thank you for that. Good idea. Okay, is it possibly that we're witnessing a miracle that we got a meeting done in less than an hour? What do you think? What do we need? There's something else we haven't done, huh?
This is the last procedure.
Oh,
so,
thank you.
We have, Vicki, I have noted your suggestion for procedure 20, what's added and not members of the EAB. So the last procedure on the screen, procedure 21. The procedure we have listed is the policy provides for the ethics officer or outside counsel to make decisions about whether to reject a complaint that does not meet the requirements of the policy and whether to grant an extension of time for a response if provided for good cause. If no such decisions are appealed, they will be scheduled for consideration by the board at either the next scheduled meeting or at a special meeting. So this goes back to the heart of your decisions that ethics officer can make.
Didn't we change it to, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm super tired. So I could be wrong, but didn't we change it to the ethics officer making these decisions? And that they can consult the council instead of giving
That
the.
seems correct to me.
See, even when you're tired, you have brilliant thoughts. Look at that.
I thought we added or outside counsel in case one or the other weren't available. So it just covered not creating a bottleneck.
What section?
Page 6 of the policy.
I might be remembering wrong.
I think you're both right because we rewrote the second paragraph under Ethics Advisory Board procedures in the policy document that starts the ethics officer who may consult with outside legal counsel shall review the complaint and take no further action. So that's the norm. And then when we come down later in the red language, in the absence of an ethics officer, a member of the board shall serve in the place of the ethics officer.
So I think we need to remove the
Yeah.
or outside.
Because it's
counsel.
not ever going to be the outside legal counsel. Good catch. Let's see here. Does that make sense, John? Okay. The policy provides for the ethics officer to make decisions about whether to reject a complaint that does not meet the requirements.
Come on, Ed, I expected you to catch that one.
Yes, thank you. Phew. These documents just keep getting better and better, don't they?
This is gonna be the best ethics policy in the country.
Don't ever let anybody tell you an English degree is not useful. Right?
Exactly, they're gonna use this. Decades to go.
We have successfully got through items 3 and 4, policies and procedures.
I have a
Sorry.
question. On procedure 19,
Yes,
I know that across that currently, it says the city law department isn't in process of creating. At some point, this video is going to be created, right? So why would we keep in process? Why would we just say the city law department shall provide a brief video about the code?
yeah, good idea.
Great idea.
Thank you, Lakeisha. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns, do-overs?
Thank you for your hard work.
Yes, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
absolutely. And thank you all for your willingness to come back and finish this week. It's definitely more of a final product to give to them on Tuesday than what we had last week.
And I won't be on the ninth.
That's right. Thank you.
Is anyone DVRing the game? I can give you the score.
That's good, because we'll drive home and be halftime. I get to watch second half.
It is halftime, right?
Yay. Yes, how we doing?
We're down 6 points. We
Well,
went
that's not
ahead
bad.
most of the game.
Really?
6.
That's amazing. Wow. Great. Okay, I should probably write down what time we ended. 6:59. How about that? Okay, and after the workshop, and you're welcome to come to the workshop if you want, or they usually put those on Facebook Live if you want to watch, but after the workshop's over, I'll give y'all an email update to just let you know if it feels like they're digging it, or if it feels like they want something else changed, or, and then I'll let you know if we get scheduled for a council meeting agenda also. I'll let you know when that is, because certainly if anybody wants to watch or come to the meeting, that would be wonderful. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it, Vicki? Well, thank you all very much. Excellent meeting. We'll see you in 3 weeks at our next meeting in February 9th.
There is a restaurant right